Alright, so we'll do some more responding to comments. I'm probably missing a load, but I find it really difficult to navigate YouTube. So I'll start with this reply. So in the last video I posted, I responded to Sue, talking about this energetic recognition that comes when listening to people describe awakening. I responded, I think, to that in the last video. I think I did. But there's another comment here in this discussion, and it says, "Oh, it did it again. Just reading your reply. What a wild, energetic experience of recognition. Thank you for that pointing. I'm hesitant to get too excited because I know what is getting excited isn't what is recognizing. Thank you again." So I think you probably said what I would respond with at the end of that. But what's important about that is you could make the so this recognition, this energetic recognition that you described there, what's important is not making a thought-based conclusion about it. I'm not saying this is what you're doing, maybe not, but not making a thought-based conclusion about it, especially, for example, a duality or a resistance of something, a resistance of in this case it might be excitement. Enjoy the excitement. The excitement is, like you said, an energetic experience, an energetic feeling, a visceral, physical experience, and its nature is non-dual. And this can come as just an automatic reaction to this recognition. The energetics of this move in strange ways, but watch for so watch for the mind recognizing the recognition, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what I think you're saying here. The mind recognizing, so you pointed that out clearly, this recognition, unknowable recognition that's inherently clear, inherently complete. Around that, the mind creates an experience. The mind will, and this is what we automatically do, will pull back from that and try and relate to it. It will pull back from that and try and label it, analyze it. And it's doing that to try and understand, to try and capture it, to try and pinpoint that recognition and figure it out. And it does this in more and more subtle ways. But you've recognized that there, you've recognized that tendency. But I would say look for that as a direct experiential movement, and avoid, I'm going to say avoid, but that's maybe not a good way of putting it, but be clear on conclusions, be clear on labelings, be clear on the self coming through the back door and then resisting itself again, the self coming through the back door and labelling itself with conclusive or judgments or beliefs, if that makes sense. You mentioned the energetic experience of it, so the wild energetic experience. and you clearly, you feel, like I said in the last video, you feel the recognition, and then it's more now a dilation of, and a relaxation, a letting go of that pull back, that regroup, that relate to habit that just happens, that can sometimes feel like it's pulling you back out of that, let's say, experience back into a relative world, a relative position of someone who relates to this experience of recognition. And that's very strong for a while, but like I said before, there seems to be like a duality between the person who relates to the experience and then what the experience actually represents, which is something that the mind, the self that relates, can't understand, because it doesn't, it's not something that's in the world of identity form, including thought forms, time and space. That's why it feels so weird. That's why the mind scrambles. That's why we kind of sometimes get this fear response to it. Pardon me. That's why we sometimes get the confusion. But that you've clearly recognised that. I would say recognise that as much in experience as possible in the moment, in real time, as it happens. And then two, you can just let that go. Just identify it, or notice it. It's noticed directly, immediately in experience, and let it go. Notice, let it go. Notice, let it go. And then by doing that, this recognition, this energetic recognition will potentiate, let's say, and it will become more primary, become more obvious, become more in the forefront of experience, rather than a kind of elusive, mysterious background phenomenon that the mind is kind of struggling to grasp or relate to because it doesn't understand. But like I said before, it's the important thing is and I think you're dialed right into this already. The important thing is the energetics of it, that feeling, that follow the feeling of it. I said follow last time. I wouldn't say that's a great way to describe it, but immerse yourself in that feeling of it, and then the more and more you do that, the more it will become familiar. The feeling of tension, resistance, and confusion that's there when we pull back into an identity and then try and relate to that as an experience. But that's really awesome, and I love to hear that. It's amazing, isn't it? Alright, so I think my phone's run out of battery, but we'll just run it into the ground and see how far we get. Oh, this is the same one. So Jay, I can't really see that, Jay. So Jay's commented a lot recently on this channel, and I respond to this one because I think it highlights the same thing. So whenever listening to your talks, what seems to happen is the silence becomes louder, or the thoughts diminish more and more. Less suffering, yet still seems time bound. Yet this writing is tiny. Yet the seeing itself is just seeing without any seeming separateness. The resonating does resonate here, as what's talked about is just quiet and still. Sorry if this sounds stupid, but when I dilate my awareness, where I cannot further simplify, it's just seeing, yet, quotation marks, this isn't what was seen as a glimpse. Yeah, so this, for you, Jay, the I think that's correct, is it? Maybe it's all one word. Anyway, I'm just going to call you Jay. You describe it as, it appears to you as silence, because I think you've used that a few times. Silence is synonymous with what I point to on this channel. It's silence, consciousness, stillness, presence, isness, I amness, knowingness, so on and so on. All synonymous, all meaning the same thing. So there's that recognition of this there. It is becoming obvious in your experience, let's say, this silence. And you're noticing that in this, the thoughts, I think you said the thoughts diminish. Yeah. So for a while, it'll seem like the thoughts diminish, but then you become more aware of thoughts. You become more aware of deeper levels of thoughts. You become aware of, in this silence, you become aware of thoughts forming and then seemingly dissolve, thoughts forming and dissolving, coming and going, and that subtly suggests time. But the more we, let's say, observe that, the more we let it go, the more we identify and let go, the less real the thoughts feel, the less identification there is in the thoughts, especially when we're not also resisting them. Because when we resist the thoughts, we identify with them, and we resist them by wanting something to change about them. But you see, in this silence, you see how the thoughts calm down, especially when you notice them. They calm down when you even notice the silence in the thoughts, notice the ghost-like, ethereal quality of them, and try and reify the substance of them, the sound of them, the texture of them. Try and reify that by looking at them, not by following the content, by looking at them. And you'll see they become made of silence as well, made of pure knowingness. And they diminish, but they what diminishes is not the presence of the thought, but the identification with the thought that makes them seem real, that makes them seem believable, tangible, solid, like a real reality, seemingly inside the head. And yeah, you said something about the resonance being quiet and still. It has that quality to it, unmoving. Thoughts move, form, sounds, everything moves, but something in that is unmoving, doesn't come and go. And everything here, the experience is made of that. So initially it seems like a stillness, a silence, because if you got in touch with something infinite, something that doesn't depend on volume, it doesn't depend on degrees of intensity or value or relation or identity, importance, and that steadiness, that neutrality is infinite, it's expansive, it's infinite, and you're in touch with that, and that's what's important. Just investigating that, investigating the nature of that, more so the nature of what seems to be obstructing that, what seems to be getting in the road or distracting from that, or diminishing the presence of that stillness, of that quietness that seems to noisy up the quietness. The more we orient towards that stillness, the more the obstructions, the illusory, the seeming illusory obstructions become obvious, and we're not looking from them. In a sense, we're looking at them. We're not involved in them. We're kind of observing them, in a sense, from and as this stillness. Sorry if this sounds stupid. No, it doesn't. Nothing sounds stupid to me. I dilate my awareness. Yeah, dilation, where I cannot further simplify. Yeah. So you're when you're being the stillness, you're almost, you could say, like you said, simplifying. You're almost taking a step back. You take a step back from the engagement with thoughts, the identification with thoughts. You take a step back from the meaning, the symbolic meaning associated with the things that we look at or the sounds that we hear. We take a step back, and simultaneously in doing that, we almost adjust our focus. We take a step back, but we also become more acutely aware of what these symbolic suggestions and meanings and beliefs are at the same time. And there's a quality of taking a step back, but also moving into the experience, thoughts as well, moving into the experience as the pure sensory substance of it, rather than the meaning of it, or the belief, or the how I relate to it, the identification of it. So it's a strange backward step. Like you said, you go so far back, you get to a point where you can't go back any further. You can't complicate experience anymore by adding value to it, or adding thoughts or meaning or relation to it. And at that point, I would say, try not to give a mental model. It's hard not to sometimes. It's paradoxical. You get to a point where you can't go any further back, and let's say from that point you can see the function of the individual. You can see the thought that is the thinker appear and seemingly disappear in real time. You can see time appear. You can see time being made. You can see the illusion of time constructing itself. You can see the pure infinite substance of the sense material, let's say, the sensory experience, let's say. And that noticing brings about this recognition. And the recognition I can't explain, because you recognize something that you are by becoming aware of, as an object, what you are not, or what you were looking from, that you took to be yourself. So my phone's gonna die. So you're spot on with that. You've described that very well, and you're in the perfect in the perfect place, let's say, in the perfect state, which is not a state of being, which is inherent, which you can't do because you're not doing it. And it's just a case of staying there and being attentive in a relaxed and curious way. not following the seeking vibes that will say that you'll notice they come in after. They're added to what you described. What you described seems too simple for the mind, so the mind will come in and say, no, it can't be this. But what about this? It gets impatient, and then feel that energy of that seeking energy. What does it feel like? There's a tension to it. There's a contraction to it. There's a dissatisfaction inherent in it. That stillness that you described, is that subject to dissatisfaction? Does that need to be figured out? Does that need confirmation? Or does it confirm itself? Is it already figured out? Does it need to find itself, or is it just there? But I think your description's awesome, and you're in a really, really good place. Anyway, my phone's gonna die. That'll do for now, and I'll talk to you next time.